Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am your host, Amanda Farmer, going out to the Your Strata Property Facebook page and also out to our followers there on LinkedIn. It's lovely to be here with you this Friday afternoon after a fairly full-on week in Strata. I know I don't have to tell you guys what it's like. How are you doing? How has your week been? I would love for you to let me know what's been going on, what you're up to this Friday afternoon. I have been preparing this week to head to Sydney over the weekend and attend 2 tribunal hearings that I have scheduled in for earlier in the week. I'm saying that I'm heading to Sydney because some of you may have heard me mention on the podcast this week and maybe on our live a couple of weeks ago that I am currently splitting my time between Sydney and the beautiful town that is Mudgee in Central West, New South Wales. Yes, indeed, a bit of a change for my family. We have made the move to Mudgee, a bit of a tree change, moving here for my husband's work as he heads up the new brew pub here in town. So I got a new Mudgee office, and that's where you're seeing me today. But heading into my Sydney office for tribunal hearings on Monday and Tuesday. One of those cases has been a fairly drawn out, protracted tribunal case about a compulsory appointment. I'm acting for a couple of lot owners in a scheme where they are trying to have a strata manager appointed under a compulsory management, taking on all powers of the owners corporation and the strata committee. So those kinds of applications, I think I'm finding, maybe it's just the lot owner clients that I have at the moment, are becoming a lot more popular. There's more of them around. I'm getting asked quite often about compulsory appointments and how they work. And that is something that I'm definitely going to get into with our special guest today. I do have a special guest here for you waiting in our virtual green room, and we're going to chat about the hot topics, the things that are of concern to our lot owners, our strata owners at this point in time. And compulsory managements are definitely at the top of the list. Why? I'm not quite sure, but we'll get into that with our special guest. I will introduce her very, very soon. I'm also going to let you know about a webinar that I have coming up for you next week, one of my famous Bylaws webinars. We haven't done one for a little while, a couple of months, I think, but I do have one for you, and I'll let you know how you can register for that so you can join me again live online next week. But I am seeing so many of you coming on in and waiting, no doubt, to hear from our special guest here today. If you are here, if you're on Facebook, if you are on LinkedIn, I always love for you to drop me a comment, give me a hello. Guess what? Yes, it is one of those Fridays. I do have a little beverage here with me, some Australian sparkling in my lovely green crystal today. Those of you who follow some of these sessions will see I have a range of different coloured crystal champagne glasses, felt like green today. If you are also joining me with a Friday afternoon drink, feel free to let me know and say hello. I am already seeing some hellos come through in our comments here, both on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And Rochelle will be proud of me because I'm remembering how to pop our comments up on the screen. How cool is that? Hey, Michael, thank you for saying hi. Michael has had a great week with a smooth EGM. Awesome. Was that an online EGM, Michael, a virtual EGM? Let us know a little bit more. Was it huge? Was it something you were nervous about? Congratulations. And Henry is here. Henry's saying, hi, Amanda, locked up again. Yes, you're in Melbourne there, Henry. Our love, our care to all of our friends in Victoria, in Melbourne, who are in lockdown again. You poor sweethearts. We are all thinking of you and hope that you can get out sometime very, very soon. I haven't followed the news today, so I'm not sure what the update is. You guys can let me know. Henry, let me know. But thank you for tuning in. This is the beauty of our Friday lives and our get-togethers. We can still all feel part of the world, no matter where we are or where we are locked down. Savia is tuning in from LinkedIn. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Savia. So nice to hear from you, Mudgee Wine Country. That is true. That is true. I have fallen on my feet here. That is for sure. We have some friends coming to visit us this weekend who are arriving this evening. So my little boy, he's in the room just next to me here. And he's very excited. You might hear later how excited he is. He is under strict instructions that Mummy is on Facebook Live and we have some quiet time. But 8 years old, who knows how long that will last. Aiden is tuning in and saying, can we have a compulsory manager appointed to a BMC? Wow. Excellent question, Aiden. I have not come across that before. I've come across that question before and certainly not seen that kind of arrangement before. I have some thoughts on that. I'm going to park that and I'm going to ask our Strata Manager Extraordinaire special guest if she has any thoughts on that. I can actually see her in the green room and she just went like this. Amanda, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? That's okay. I'll help you out. I'll help you out. Can we make a little note about that one, Rochelle? So I remember to come back to Aiden's comment there. Rochelle is always here on a Friday, helping me in the background. Thank you, dear Rochelle. Natalie Fitzgerald is here listening in the car and very excited. Yes, Natalie Fitzgerald working closely with our special guest. And Natalie, unfortunately, couldn't be here with us today. We had intended to have Natalie on live as well, but Natalie's had to attend to a family issue. I'm so grateful that you can still join us from the car, Natalie. Olivia is here. So great to see you, Olivia. Particularly looking forward to this one. Yes, indeed. Me too, Olivia. And Michael telling us a bit more about his EGM. It was a hybrid, both in person and Zoom, mainly to remove combustible cladding and impose a relatively inexpensive special levy for it. Awesome. So great to hear that that went well. We don't hear a lot of good news stories in Strata, do we, guys? Rena and I sometimes struggle to bring our wins to the podcast. No problem at all bringing our challenges to the podcast, but wins are hard to come across. So I love hearing from you when you've had a great week, a great meeting. Thank you very much for sharing that. Jenny is tuning in and saying, hi, learning a lot by being here. Great to see you here, Jenny. And Aiden, I think, is just responding there to Michael saying, glad it was smooth. I'm racing off to an EGM tonight. I don't think it's going to be as smooth as yours, Michael. A lot of motions which may be declared invalid. Oh, you got lawyers attending there, Aiden? Sounds like you might have some lawyers sending you letters if that's what's going on. And an EGM on a Friday night. No, you guys need to black out that part of your calendar, please. I don't like hearing that strata managers are going to EGMs on Friday nights. But at least you got to join us here on Friday Live. Okay, now I am just checking my messages here. We are doing well. Awesome. Now, I want to, before I introduce our special guest, check in with you guys and see if you have heard that in New South Wales, there is a bill before Parliament which has and may have, if it goes through, some significant impact on our strata managers. Now, this is a bill that has been championed by the Real Estate Institute in New South Wales, the REI, and it is a bill that would see the introduction of a dedicated property services commissioner. Now, the REI has been quite vocal about getting this bill forward and has done a fair bit of media about this. And I was looking on their website recently, and they say that there are more than 50,000 real estate professionals and agency service staff across New South Wales. I can only assume that they have included strata managers in that count because strata managers are definitely referenced in this bill. The industry serves the interests of over 2 million people with their property transactions annually, buying, selling, living in these properties. And they say that no other industry can match the social and economic importance of the property industry. Now, I know we in Strata have been saying that for a very, very long time, that our industry, if you look at the insured value of our strata buildings, rivals the superannuation industry when we're looking at the importance, the impact in dollar terms that the strata industry has. Now, the REI says that for the last 10 years, they have relentlessly lobbied government, New South Wales government, to remove the property services industry from New South Wales fair trading and to establish instead a dedicated property services commissioner. And they have announced that there is indeed now a bill before New South Wales Parliament. It has passed through the upper house. It's called the Property Services Council Bill. And I understand the lower house is reconvening on the 10th of June to consider whether this bill will go through and become legislation, 10th of June being only next week. And REI says if the bill goes through, then property agents, including strata managers, will say goodbye to New South Wales Fair Trading, to that entity being their regulator. Now, we do have a link to the bill, or at least we did, and now I'm looking at my notes. I can't see it there. It's just on page 2, Rochelle, if you want to have a flick down and share a copy of the bill with our viewers. And there's also a link there to the Real Estate Institute's webpage where you'll see a lot of that information that I have just shared with you. Now, it is word on the street is that the New South Wales government will block the bill in the lower house, so it may not go through, and the REI is concerned about that. The bill sets up a property services council, and it says that the objects of the council are to promote appropriate standards of conduct and competency for agents, to protect the interests of people who deal with agents, to facilitate the resolution of disputes between agents and the people who deal with them. That's the language used in the bill. Definitely those terms include strata managing agents and the people who deal with them. That is a lot of you guys, the lot owners, the consumer, as we say. The council would be represented by or have as part of it a board, and the bill sets out the entities that would be represented on that board. The entities include, interestingly, OCN, the Owners Corporation Network, and also SCA, Strata Community Association. Now, I have reached out to Chris Duggan, the president of SCA New South Wales, to ask what SCA's position is on this bill and whether they are supporting the introduction of a dedicated property services commissioner in New South Wales. I hadn't seen any media from SCA or heard SCA talking about this bill. It had only come to my attention through REI. And Chris very generously gave me his comments. He has said quite clearly that SCA New South Wales is not in support of the position that is taken by the bill or the drafting of the current bill. SCA takes a position where they wish to collaborate with Fair Trading as the regulator of the property services industry. And whilst they do acknowledge that the services of Fair Trading can be improved, the creation of a standalone entity, which the Property Services Council and the Commissioner would be, would take an adversarial position with government and would not advance the cause of the consumer and benefit the industry, in SCA's opinion. So that's what SCA has to say, and thank you, Chris, for making that comment. I do know that SCA supports a review of fair trading and the setup of the regulation of strata managing agents, and also would support the appointment of a property services commissioner within the framework of fair trading, which, as I understand it, is how our building commissioner, David Chandler, is set up, and his role is within the auspices of fair trading. So that is what's happening with the Property Services Commissioner Bill or Property Services Council Bill. We will be watching that closely next week to see if that goes through, because if it does, it will mean a significant change, I believe, for the way our strata managing agents conduct their business, their education, their training, their CPD, how disputes are dealt with between owners and strata managing agents in particular, and the resources that we may have available for managing agents working in strata. So shall let you know how that goes. I'm seeing a couple more comments come on through here. Pamela is saying, hi Pamela, so lovely to see you. And I'm getting some questions about the relationships between, I believe, owners and tenants. Olivia's got a question about making sure new owners are aware of bylaws. Pamela is referring to some hostile members of her strata committee who want to change strata managers. Oh, Pamela, I think you are delving into exactly the topics that we intend to cover with our special guest here today. And it is time. It is time to introduce her. I will be bringing her on after I tell you a little bit about her. Our special guest today is Jessica Kaye. She is a senior strata manager and the operations lead at More Than Strata. In 2020, Jessica was awarded Strata Manager of the Year, New South Wales, and is, as I understand it, currently a finalist for the 2021 Australasia Award, Strata Manager of the Year. She is certainly a young person on the rise in our space. She is passionate about people, policy, and sustainability, committed to advocating for improved professionalism and education in the strata management sector. Jessica is a member of the SCA New South Wales Education Committee, where she works with other members to improve stakeholder experience and knowledge standards. Jessica is also, like me, a proud fur mum, has a fur baby, a big sister, and an active member of her cricket club. Now, Jessica is fresh here today from an education session she hosted for strata owners and other stakeholders last night, and I know that she's ready to fill us in on the burning questions asked by those who attended. I will bring her on in now. Jessica Kaye, welcome.
Thanks, Amanda. That was so nice. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And it is lovely to have you here chatting with us, and also to have you as a strata manager, busy strata manager, serving our sector. I've mentioned you as a young person. I'm allowed to do that now because I'm old. Have you, I'm just going to surprise you with this question. I hope you don't mind. Have you been in strata since you finished school, or what was it that drew you into strata management?
Oh, absolutely. What a good question. I sort of fell into strata by complete accident, and a very happy accident at that. When I left school, I went straight to uni, started off doing a combined degree of law and arts, majoring in international relations and global governance. And then somehow through that, found a position at a local strata company near me and fell into it and fell in love and been there ever since. So
Yes.
that's it.
It's a typical story, the fall into it from strata managers. I just fell into it. I knew someone, or I had a part-time job, and I know that SCA in particular has been doing some work connecting with university students and HSC students who are leaving school and letting them know about strata management as an option, so that we don't have managers who are falling into it but actively choosing that path. I'm not sure in your role as an SCA committee member whether you've been involved in that, but I think it's a fabulous idea.
Couldn't agree more. It's so exciting. The SCA had a stall at the Hordern Pavilion recently, during one of the HSC Open Days. So it's so exciting to see young and emerging professionals coming through the ranks who are getting really excited and passionate about our industry.
Yep. Excellent. Bring it on. Bring them on, I say. Now, tell me about last night's event hosted by More Than Strata. Who was there, and how did it go?
Absolutely. So the MTS team, headed up by Natalie Fitzgerald, we ran a Strata Q&A yesterday, and we basically said that there were no questions that couldn't be asked. So it was very open-ended, and did we get a cross-section? So there was myself, Natalie Fitzgerald, frequent participant in your podcast, as we all know, and Vince Graham of Project Guides participated and were there as panelists for anyone to basically come along and ask us any burning questions that they had. So it ran for about 2 hours. We had an introduction session to who we are at MTS, the service offerings that we provided, and then basically opened it up for whatever anyone wanted to participate during the session.
Excellent. And rainy night in Sydney, but as I understand it, you had a great turnout. Do you feel like there is a real hunger for this information by strata owners in particular? I know I see lots of events happening all the time. I know a lot of the things that I do, we have a lot of owners coming to. From your side, as you're running these events, you see owners there really wanting this information?
Absolutely. More often than not, we just get general phone calls coming through our business hours asking us for help. And
Hmm.
it's a really troubling situation because, as much as we'd love to give the time, we obviously have our portfolios that we're responsible for. And being part of MTS, we're very passionate about giving back to the community and to the industry, hence why we hold these events in order to do that for everybody. So, in terms of the need, absolutely, it's increasing. We're finding that committees are becoming more savvy and are wanting to learn more about what their rights are and what their rights are in terms of pursuing actions through the legislation and just making sure that they're well equipped and informed to make those right decisions. So definitely.
I see that on my side too. I do. I use that word as well. Owners are getting more savvy, accessing the information that's there on the internet and understanding that there are paths that they can take to improve their situation in strata. What was a popular question or a particular question that you had last night that you want to share here today?
Absolutely. So, as you briefly touched on before, we got a whole heap of questions around compulsory appointments. So, essentially, what are compulsory appointments? Where do they come into fruition? How do I access and start the process of compulsory appointment? How can I get rid of my strata manager? How can we dissolve a strata committee? Which all comes down to core issues around failure to repair and maintain common property and to represent the owners corporation as they're elected to do so. That seemed to be the core issue that we found from last night,
Mm-hmm.
as well as a
Mm-hmm.
plethora of different questions that rose about what meetings are there, different types of updates for bylaws, etc. So primarily around the compulsory appointment issue.
And is this a new trend for you, Jessica? Is this question about compulsory appointments about what I would call dysfunctional communities? Are we seeing more of these? And if so, why is this happening? What are your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, so in our experience, we are seeing quite a fair few compulsory appointments coming through. In
Mm,
terms of the issues that are coming to fruition, I think with respect to COVID and everyone having a bit more time, they were fully assessing what their communities were doing. They were all forced to work from home, so they were seeing a bit more in and around their homes and their asset. So as a result of that, we were seeing people come up and ask questions about what have we been doing about maintenance? What are we doing about our contracts? Are they up for renewal? What about our strata manager? What about our building manager? Are we getting the best bang for our buck? And those were a lot of the questions that came up, and it forced people to have a reassessment of where they are in their strata journey. So I think that contributed to a degree. And then unfortunately, it just seems that from what's come across our tables, that people are just having really, really bad experiences.
mm, which is very sad.
Mm.
I agree with you that the COVID effect absolutely has a role to play in people being more aware of what's going on, or rather, what's not going on in their communities, and taking steps to have those issues rectified, which may be seeking orders for repair and maintenance or ultimately seeking orders for a compulsory manager. I've just put Blake's comment up on the screen. Are compulsory appointments becoming more common? So, answer yes from me and Jessica. Having said that, if from the legal perspective, they are still difficult orders to obtain, and they are still not orders that are made lightly by the tribunal. I certainly tell my clients that, and it is only the most serious of case where the tribunal will intervene and make an order that divests you, takes away all of your powers as owners, removes your right to vote and make decisions about your community for a period of time. But it certainly happens, and I've run quite a few of those cases within the last 12 months where those orders have been made. Now, the question that was raised earlier by Aidan, can we have a compulsory manager appointed to a BMC? That is, for those of you who aren't in New South Wales, a building management committee. Did you want to take a stab at that one, Jess, or are you happy for me to jump in?
Sure, absolutely. It's what first of all, what an excellent question. In my property journey, I haven't come across this one, so it's required a bit of thinking on my half. Most BMCs in their strata management statement have a dispute resolution mechanism. So there are facilities within that statement, and because each building management committee is so unique, they all have their own SMS. So there is reference in the SMS about how to resolve disputes, and I'm sure that issues around the appointment of a manager would fall into that category. In terms of whether the Strata Schemes Management Act, specifically Section 237, would respond, my gut instinct is probably not, because BMCs aren't governed under that piece of legislation.
Full marks, 10 stars. 20 stars. We're going to cut
Great.
it back to 10. Yes, that's what I would say too. In respect of the legislation, the Strata Schemes Management Act is the vehicle that we use to have these compulsory appointments, as Jess said, Section 237, and it only applies to owners' corporations. It doesn't apply to building management committees. Building management committees being created by that Strata Management Statement, which is a contract, essentially, a document that binds the members of the Building Management Committee. We don't actually have legislation that creates that Building Management Committee and then gives it rights and obligations. So it's a very interesting creature, a BMC, and always, as just said, going back to that Strata Management Statement and seeing if you've got a problem, have a look at the dispute resolution procedures and what that may or may not say about managing agents for the BMC. But excellent question. Thank you very much, Aidan, for asking that one. I'm also just going to take this opportunity to scroll down. A few more people coming in and saying, hi, Joe is here. How you doing, Joe? And I'm going to bring up Pamela's question, which I think fits in here nicely, Jess. Pamela says there are hostile members of our community who want to change strata managers. Well, can you recommend anyone? I'm not sure that we're going to make any recommendations here live, Pamela, but we can certainly have a chat offline, I'm sure. But hostile members of a strata committee, this is also an issue that I know, Jess, you see, and I think it might have come up last night as well, dealing with difficult committee members. I always say, as part of my education sessions, that the number one thing that almost guarantees a functioning community is an excellent strata committee. So conversely, when you've got a crappy one and hostile committee members or committee members that won't comply with their obligations, their duties, the legislation, then you're going to have problems. And it sounds like, unfortunately, that's what Pamela is going through. From your side, Jess, do you see owners complaining about difficult strata committee members in particular?
Usually by the point it escalates, they don't generally complain to the current managing agent about difficult or hostile committee members, is what I generally find. In terms of when you approach one that could potentially be deemed as hostile, it's the strata manager's role to come in and act as the intermediary and help resolve those issues. That's what we're employed to do. So in terms of when you're having that, obviously there are mechanisms under the legislation to dissolve a dysfunctioning committee that can be taken to a general meeting of the owners corporation, but there are certain things that you can do prior to it escalating to that point. So in any case, if you believe that your strata committee members are not acting in good faith or with due diligence as they're required to do as elected representatives of the owners corporation, I would encourage you to complain to your strata manager at first point. If that obviously does not resolve the issue, then again, there are mechanisms within the Act in order to look to dissolve and reappoint a new committee.
There is also the option to approach the tribunal and seek orders that committee members be removed. And I'm often asked, oh, Amanda, can you send us some of those cases where that's been successful so we can have a look and we can do the same thing? And I say, I am not aware of a single case that has been successful where someone has applied under that particular section of the Act, which section escapes me at the moment, but I'll come back and post it under the video, where you can have a committee member removed by order of the tribunal because they have failed to comply with their duties. Yes, I see those applications made, but I haven't seen them made successfully. So it is tricky. I say to my clients, if you have a problem with the committee, are you on the committee? Because that may be a particularly different situation if you're a member of this committee that is not functioning and may give you certain avenues to address that. B, do you want to be on the committee? Because that is the way, in my view, practically to effect change, is to put your hand up and say, me and my posse over here have a better way to do things and are going to put up our hands to have a crack at running this community. And unless you're prepared to do that, then you're not going to see change. And I talk with owners all the time about that kind of process. And I'm very upfront in saying it is a long process. It is not an easy process. It takes a team. You, of course, need owners behind you, others willing to stand for the committee if you are looking at replacing an entire committee. And it's usually a process, I think, that is run over a period of a year from one AGM to the next, and planning for that next AGM where you're going to explain to the community why it is that you say this committee has not been functioning in the best interest of everyone. And you're going to have to build that case. You're going to have to build that paper trail throughout the year, paint that picture, tell that story. And it becomes a political, I say, rather than legal exercise. You're campaigning for your own election, and these things take time. Do you see owners who are understanding that, Jess, or taking that approach to affect change, or is everybody just a bit litigation happy, wants to go to the tribunal?
Look, it really depends. There are some that are certainly far more proactive than others and understand fully that you need to get your hands dirty if you want to affect any change. I have seen buildings that have gone down the route of, rather than waiting until an upcoming AGM by convening, so going around and getting 25% of the UE to convene a general meeting to dissolve the current committee and then appoint another one, so that meeting's convened for that entire purpose. So I have seen it get to that level of extremity before. But generally speaking, yeah, it happens by way of AGM usually.
Now, I have another question here from Olivia, which I think we can jump to. Olivia is asking, how can we make sure that new owners are aware of the bylaws and that tenants are also notified of their rights and responsibilities? This is a common, in my experience, concern, problem of committee members and owners. How do we get new tenants and owners educated about our communities? Any tips there, Jess?
Absolutely. So when you get new owners buying in, you have an owner information form, and that can be served and used in a really positive way where you can add a lot of information about the building in terms of its house rules, what day the bins are taken out, where to find certain things or certain points of contact, for example, if you do have a proactive strata committee. So those things can be provided. It is catered strata plan to strata plan. So that's generally one way of getting it done. In terms of the tenants, obviously the real estate agent should be providing them with a copy of the bylaws. But should you want to take that one step further, organising a welcome letter saying, welcome to our community, this is who we are, this is what we're about, and this is what our expectations are as a member of our community. I see no harm in getting that done.
Yeah, I see some communities that have a welcome pack, and they have that pack contains the bylaws and other useful information about the community. There's definitely a legal obligation. It's in our Strata Schemes Management Act for the owner to notify the owners corporation of new tenants' details. They're supposed to do that within 14 days of the commencement, I think it is, Jess, of the lease. But strata managers tuning in will tell me, I know you're all yelling, but Amanda, it doesn't happen. They don't. The agent doesn't send us the details. The owner doesn't send us the details. So if you're really committed to connecting with new residents, the way to do that is, as Jess is saying, on the ground, meeting with them, handing them the information. And if you're not a resident owner or not able to do that yourself or take on that task, it's a big building, then setting up groups of resident owners who are able to look after their particular area of the building. When I interviewed Charles Vogel for the Shared Space Summit last year, his expertise, he's a Californian author, his expertise is community. And we talked about the art of community. And he recommended for our strata communities setting up what he called pods and having a leader of each pod. So when you've got multi-story buildings or large communities, you have one person who is focused on and in charge of level 7, for example. So anyone moving into or out of the 4 apartments on level 7, this particular owner is the one who should be aware of that, doing the door knock and handing over the welcome pack. And it's not a matter of, these are our rules and you must follow them. Please stop putting your dirty rubbish in the recycling. You're making the place stink. It's saying, hey, welcome, hello. This is some useful information for you to help make your life easier. You may not realize you can phone this number and book a council collection for your empty boxes that you've got in there. If you want to keep your dog, this is the way to get approval for that. Those things that help make your new residents' life smoother, and then by extension that everybody else's life smoother. And I know, Olivia, that's your aim, I'm sure, in trying to get this information. to new
Notice
residents?
boards are also a useful tool as well. So it's not just a statutory requirement in circumstances to have them, but it's also a useful tool and mechanism to have emergency contact listing or details on who to contact in the strata committee or the managing agent to get all of that information as well. So it's not just necessarily handing it to them, but also making sure that your notice boards are up to date, your community dashboards, if you have them, are up to date. Any online system, website, etc., that governs and assists in the management of your building has all of that information up to date as well.
Yep. Excellent. I'm just going to jump down to Savia's comment here from LinkedIn. Most owners say they do not have the time to put in the hard yards to make big changes within the strata scheme. Yes, I'm sure that is a common experience. I did see another one there from you, Savia. Yes, we strata managers take an active role and approach the new resident and provide them with a welcome pack, including bylaws. So welcome pack seems to be something to have a look at there, Olivia. Henry is saying it is also very useful to have the bylaws translated into different languages. So this is not used as an excuse. Yes, that I didn't know. Clever. I like that, Henry. And Joe also likes that idea. Awesome. A few more hellos coming in. Here's a comment. Jessica is awesome from Joe. We know Joe. She is. We're
Thank
very
you,
lucky
Joe.
to have her. Matthew is saying, hey, Amanda. Hey, Matthew. Nice to see you. And Marianne has a question. How do we register our SMS, our strata management statement? It should be registered, Marianne. If this is a new building, it should be registered. Jessica, you would find most strata management statements already registered, and then it's a matter of, if they're amended, registering the updated one?
Absolutely. And the SMS governs how to deal with strata management statement amendments anyway. So yeah, absolutely. I've never seen a circumstance where it's come across my desk not registered.
Yeah, so that'd be the first thing to check, Marianne. I'd be surprised if it wasn't registered. I'm assuming you're in New South Wales because you're using the term SMS and strata management statement. The registration is done through the Land Registry Services. I keep wanting to call it the LPI, Land and Property Information, but that's from 10 years ago. No, not that long, few more, 5 years ago, or Department of Lands. But LRS now, Land Registry Services, are the ones who do all the registration. So there will be a form to complete, a specific form when you amend your SMS to make sure that the updated version is then registered on the title to each of the BMC members, so they've got a copy of the SMS. So, but as for registering it straight up, that's something that the developer should have done, and it should be registered. So get back to us on that one. I'm seeing these comments are coming through quickly and trying to catch up. Oh, great. So Marianne is saying thank you. And Joe is saying LPI. So that's right. The privatization of LPI turned it into LRS. When I was presenting a seminar for conveyancers earlier this year, I was in Coffs Harbour, and I had a whole slide about acronyms for strata. And I'm not sure I had LPI and LRS on there, but I will. But these I can't even say acronyms at the moment, but these acronyms are many and varied. We
Absolutely.
love our acronyms. Okay, now I know you've mentioned there, Jess, that compulsory appointments, concerns about repairs and maintenance are cropping up regularly. Sometimes when I'm asked by lawyers and other interested people, journalists, sometimes, Amanda, what's the most common problem that you're solving in strata? I always say, it's this repair and maintenance issue. The roof is leaking and the top floor owner is suffering because of that. What can they do about it? We're seeing more of these cases come through the tribunal, at least perhaps not reported, but definitely our day-to-day practice, more and more complaints. Do you think this is just down to owners once again becoming more savvy, more educated, more time at home? Or is there a sign here that the system is failing us? We're leaving our buildings in the hands of unqualified, untrained volunteers. They are trying to do their best, but in an increasingly complex area, they're not quite making the cut. And owners are suffering, and their valuable investments are suffering because they're not able or don't understand the need to meet this incredibly important repair and maintenance duty. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think there are several facets of this that's an issue. There's the education part of it, where it's a strata manager. We can use our skills and use our training in order to educate our clients more sufficiently than what we currently do. So it's reminding them that while Section 106 is there, it's an explicit duty, and it's not just a matter of ensuring that your building doesn't fall down. It's good and serviceable repair. It's encouraged them to take pride and see the value in their own assets and make them actively participate in their own communities. That is the hardest part, is getting people to promote active participation. Obviously there's the issue of the money factor that comes into it as well. And a lot of the time when buildings come across, in my experience and across my table, is that they don't understand that there are different ways that you can raise funds. They automatically assume it has to be a special levy and it has to all be done at once. They don't understand the way that capital works fund forecasts operate or the purpose of them. They don't understand that strata loans exist and how to go about the route of investigating their loan options. So again, it's another education point. There's obviously the element of people having the best intentions, but in doing so, unfortunately, keeping with the status quo is not helping them and serving the interests of everyone involved. So there's a lot of issues in the one.
And I know and can tell from what you're saying that you're a big advocate for strata managers taking on more of that role of the trusted professional and the advisor. And I can see how that would be a really key piece here. Some of the pushback when I talk to strata managers myself in those terms and say you're a key, you're a linchpin here, and it is the good strata manager that then has the good client with the functioning community with the happy owners, is, Amanda, we don't have time and we don't get paid enough to do that kind of proactive stuff, the education stuff that you're talking about. What do you say to that?
That's such a difficult problem because it's rife across our industry. It is unfortunately something that I've experienced and something that I see and am fortunate to not experience anymore with the MTS team. It's a managerial issue in terms of the business in itself. We should be providing your strata managers with the utmost support. They're your front line. They're the ones who's supporting the clients and making sure that you're not only adhering to your agency's obligations, but you're making sure the owners' corporations are doing it too. And regardless of whether it's statutory, we're promoting people living in harmonious communities, and that needs to be at the forefront of our minds at all times. So it's an issue that's above the strata manager. Unfortunately,
Mm,
it's an
mm.
agency problem in terms of allocating the right resources, making sure that there's enough support, making sure that the salaries are good enough in order to support them looking after, hundreds of lots or potentially thousands of lots. And that's an issue that is for managerial teams in strata agencies.
And charging their worth. It's something that I always toss into this conversation, coming from the perspective of a lawyer who is highly trained, lots of years at university, and culturally, it is accepted that we charge a lot of money. We charge a high hourly rate. And I think that just puts you in a position when you are then giving your advice, you're turning up to a meeting, you're across the desk from a client or an opponent. It is a different level of acknowledgement of your expertise, of your skill, a different level of respect and acceptance that you know what's going on and we are going to take your advice. I see many very clever, intelligent, hardworking, correct strata managers trying to advise their clients and being ignored simply because they don't have that same, culturally, that same level of respect and acknowledgement of their skill. And I do think that charging an appropriate fee for services, and most strata managers are not doing that, is going to go some way to solve that problem. But you can't move on that alone.
Yeah.
As a business owner, I understand that unless everybody lifts their game in that respect, nobody's going to, or those that do are going, it's going to be a very different kind of business, a different kind of service for different people.
Yeah. And I mean, for the strata managers, I guess it comes back to the whole education piece there, right? If you're charging your clients, you need to show them what value it's bringing them to their communities. They're so used to all of these back end charges for phone calls and emails. But if you build a structure which has an inclusive fee so that you're only charging them above your base management fee for work that is tangible, for work that brings them value, that completely changes the conversation. And again, it comes back to what I'm very passionate about, which is the education and professionalism piece of the strata management industry.
Mm. Yep. And I know that SCA in particular is doing a lot of work towards that and continuing to take steps towards increasing that professionalism. Jenny has made a comment here, which I'll put up on the screen. Sometimes we are struggling to get a strata manager to follow up on requests for maintenance, quotes, and lack of knowledge about the building. Yeah. I mean, you let me know what you think, Jess, but it sounds to me that that is an overworked strata manager, simply too many buildings in their portfolio, as we say.
Yeah, absolutely. That's unfortunately something that we're seeing far too common.
Mm. And different businesses will approach the management of their buildings in different ways, Jenny. And but I do acknowledge that that is a common problem across our sector, and some of the things that Jess and I have been talking about may go some way to resolving that. Philippa, hello, Philippa. I don't think I've said hello to you yet. Small schemes, Philippa says, have challenges with resources, money, time, no building manager, so are heavily reliant on a great strata manager. So true, Philippa. And not just small schemes. I actually experienced this in a building where I own a strata apartment, and it is around about 40 lots. So I wouldn't be saying that small. But there's no building manager, but there is an excellent resident committee member. And I call her our free building manager regularly and say, you got to stop doing this. We need to get somebody who we are paying to do it. And she's lovely. And she, at the moment, has the time and is on site to do it, but meeting with trades and checking that things are done properly. If you don't have that person, that resident owner who is there and takes an interest and is aware and has the energy to do it, absolutely, you're going to be in trouble. And it is, I agree with you, Philippa, often the excuse we can't afford to have a building manager to do that. So things just get let slip. And I think you need a great strata manager regardless of where you're at, because if you're a bigger building with bigger budgets and more services like a building manager, you still need a great strata manager. What do you think, Jess?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And those strata committee members are so treasured. They're the ones that we connect with daily, the ones that we're calling up often, who are giving their times out. They welcome, our office into their homes, and they're always the ones who are there for us as well. So without them, we wouldn't be able to function as strata managers, really.
Mm. Now, I am seeing so many great comments here. There are conversations going on within these comments that I can't quite keep up with, but I love the way that this community reaches out and helps each other. I can see some advice being given and received, and thanks being given here. It's wonderful. Henry is saying the biggest issue we face in Victoria is that state and local governments do not support strata managers and owner occupiers. Yeah, we face it here too, Henry. They don't get it. They don't understand what strata is, and that is indeed part of the problem and part of our challenge to educate our governments on exactly who we are and what we're doing and why we're so important. Okay, I'm scrolling through some more comments here, and I can't keep up because there's a lot of back and forth. So I think Philippa is saying we're lucky we have a proactive committee and a great strata managing agent. Yeah, excellent. I'm in that same boat there, Philippa, which is wonderful. Okay, well, Jess, did you want to share with us anything else that cropped up from last night in terms of popular questions or comments? I know also that More Than Strata, as you've said, is very focused on bringing this education to owners, and I'm sure you've got another event coming up soon that you should feel free to share with us.
Absolutely. So we're basically going to be organising another session next month. And we got some brilliant feedback, which is great. So our topics next month will primarily be focused on meetings, different types of meetings. When you use those meetings in order to benefit and streamline communication, governance, procedure, etc., for strata committees, as well as the procedure for how to change strata managers as well. So we'll be tackling that one next month.
Yeah, I get asked that one a lot too about changing strata managers. there's podcasts for that. So Rochelle will just give me a reminder to pop a link to that podcast episode in there. But I would be definitely tuning in to your session there on changing strata managers for an update. And meetings, yes, meetings, strata committee meetings. This is where I see communities that are high functioning are the ones that have, as I said, great committees, but these committees are meeting regularly. And even when you don't think, oh, well, we don't have a lot going on, we don't have a big building, we don't have a building manager, we don't really need to. Yes, you do. You do need to meet regularly. And the minutes of that meeting become the place, that record of information for others to rely on. Now, I was about to mute myself because the door to my office here just opened and a little person is coming in and a little puppy dog has arrived. So he's been locked up in here because he's probably causing some trouble outside. I think I'm being told that, Mummy, it's time to wrap up. Now, I do know, Jess, before I let you go, there is a resource, a very good resource. I obtained this resource from there you go, from More Than Strata earlier today, and it is all about levies. Can you tell us a bit about that while I take Louis out to the other room?
Absolutely. So Natalie Fitzgerald, the co-founder of More Than Strata, has prepared a white paper, which basically is a tool to help you assess whether your levies are too high. Now, naturally, it varies building to building. So basically, we would encourage you to download that white paper. In doing so, you'll join our mailing list, which would mean that you would get access to all of the things that we're going to start talking about next month and in future. So we release those quite often. So the levies is basically an assessment for yourself to understand whether you are contributing too high, too low, and then start asking those questions to your committees, to your owners' corporations, and to your strata managers.
Excellent. Thank you, Jess. I had all of that in my ears. I was out in the other room. We have a link. We have a link for you to access that resource, and Rochelle is going to pop it into the comments if it hasn't gone in there yet. Thank you for bearing with me while I disappeared. The joys of family life and doing live video from home on a Friday afternoon. I'm going to head off and just do a bit more of that. And I wish you the same. Thank you very much, Jess, for joining us this afternoon, and head off into your busy weekend, no doubt. Work hard, play
Absolute
hard.
pleasure. Always, always. Thanks, Amanda.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. One thing that I didn't fill you in on, which was on my list, was my webinar that's happening next week. It is next Wednesday, the 9th of June at midday, and we will just pop a registration link into the comments. I will head back and give you a bit more information about that one next week, but I'm going to let you all go now and resolve the drama that's happening in my backyard. All righty. See you guys. Have a fabulous weekend. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Amanda.